I feel like everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
100%. Why is this important? Why are we even going here? He's helped a lot of guys. He's also not had success with a lot of guys.
Come in with a purpose, and they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it.
From the majors to the sandlot, baseball and softball share space in one place. Welcome to the farm system.
Fellas, and the ladies, welcome back to another episode of The Farm. I'm sitting down with, my main. What's up, bestie?
That's
Hitting
me.
it up. That's me. We are back, and today, they already know if you're on the show today, that means we're talking something mental.
That's right.
We're going to go into it, mentalities. Today, I wanted to bring up, we want to go into it. I had a strong word on my heart that came up today, and I wanted to talk about the word committed. Right? Sorry, if you got commitment issues, I guess I should put a trigger warning on the front of this. If you got commitment issues, this episode is going to be a tough one for you.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. If this is going to be triggering for you, maybe you need to go, maybe see your therapist, set it up for after you listen to this podcast, whatever you need to do, right? Because we might hit some trigger warnings here because we're talking about that word of commitment. We're going to actually talk about what that means. We've done podcast many times before on topics like this, and it's a common word I feel like everybody throws around, and mindset that I think a lot of people throw around, but I don't think anybody really goes in depth. Everybody thinks it's important. Hey, you got to be committed, and they say those things, but there's a lot to it. So, Tay, I wanted to bring that up first to you. Is what specifically when you think about commitment? What are some of the things that kind of come to mind for you when that word is said out loud?
I think for me personally, I know, growing up, I myself had the commitment issues.
Yeah.
I had that
For sure.
disease.
Yeah.
And for me, I think mostly it was the fear of the unknown, because committing to something long term that you don't know is the fear of the unknown. And that, is a big struggle for a lot of us. And it, after I did a lot of inner work and also, saw a therapist, did a, bunch of different exercises and different things, and kind of dug more deep into my mindset and where those fears actually came from. Those were major unlocks.
So I think I think you brought up a couple things there. Is like, if you dissect commitment issues, there's a lot of things that come into that, right? So people will always just say the reason we emphasize commitment is because a lot of people aren't committed, right? And there's a lot of reasons why people can't commit. I also have had commitment issues to things, but it's for alternative reasons of why I've had issues with committing to things. And for me is I'm a classic overdoer, right? And so when I say it's like an integrity, it runs into my integrity problem. It's like, if I say I'm going to do something, like I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it to the best of my capacity, and I have a hard time, my yeses are powerful yeses. And so I know what's going to go into them. So I'm very cautious to say yes to things because I know what it's going to take for me, and I know what's going to put into it. So a lot of times I'll say a lot more no's, especially of late in the last couple of years, because of those reasons. And so that can cause like commitment issues to me, where I don't want to say yes to things because I feel like I'm not gonna be able to say no later. And if I can't, I don't have all the information, right? And I don't know the unknown, still linking back to the same thing. It's like, well, what's gonna come up where now I already said I was gonna say yes to this. So now I'm stacking that on top of all the things that I'm already doing. And then now I'm having an integrity internal problem here where I feel like I can't deliver to the level I want to deliver towards. And that's a problem for me,
Right.
And so that might look different for everybody in different places. And I think, it's like a lot of times with, advice that we receive, generally it's like, hey, you need to be committed. And it's like, oh, well, okay. But, it's easy to say, but there's deeper levels of what that actually looks like. And I do think that there's all these other resources, right? Like you said, for a lot of us, like we do need to go back and figure out, like, even for me, right? Like, why is it not okay for me to be at 80% for anything? And some people would say that that's an elite mindset, right? It's like, oh, well, should I do everything to these levels? Well, it's like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I probably don't need to be at 100% to like commit to like driving my mom to the airport on Friday. Like, and I'll do that. Like, she'll ask me and I'll just be like, well, but I might, and I don't know what's coming up. And it's like, why am I having commitment issues on again, of why I can't take my mom to the airport, right? And things like that. It's when those things start to come up and you have those things, right? Like there is some other things where you can understand, like not everything does need your 100%. Maybe it does need, partial, if you can deliver at a 20% in this area, like it's okay. And that's all right. And that's all everybody's really expecting out of you. Right. Or whatever that is. And that's still okay. And so, the big thing I wanted to first take that stigma off is there is definitely resources and places with that. And I want to talk about that in this episode. And also some tangible go-dos that we can do, that we can choose today, right? And things that we can do today to really help in that area as well. So I, definitely would like you, Taylor, to open up on that area before we get into like what we can practically do and things that choices and things that I was thinking about from a mindset standpoint. But before we get there is also from a clinical or, from that experience, that from that side is like resources, and for people to understand that to go more in depth there is that like it's not so surface level that I think a lot of people have issues with commitment, and that it's a lot deeper typically a lot of the time. And then also, resources they can take advantage of to, help in those areas that they might be struggling with things that I feel like in my interpretation where like the devil sometimes like to make us feel like we're the only ones going through this, and we're the only ones that struggle with commitment, and we're the only ones that have this problem. And I just think that that's not very true. And I think that you'll have, good insight there. So why don't you kind of share on that there? Yeah,
no, I mean, definitely, like you said, there are 100 different simple tasks. And we talked about it too, small achievable goals. Small achievable goals are also commitments that we make. Brushing your teeth is a commitment that you've made. Little things like that we don't think of because we're consciously just doing them, unconsciously doing them. These are little things that we do every single day. And when you remove the pressure from a choice and suddenly decide and make the decision that you are going to do this, it's as simple as putting a to-do in your phone. I use, the Reminders app, which is already on your phone for those of you that have an iPhone. It's already there. It's free.
If you don't, you definitely need to see a therapist.
Yeah. You're behind. You're behind.
For sure.
But, it's there. It's simple. And it takes 2 seconds for me to put something in there that I have chosen to do. And that's the hardest part for all of us, right? Is making the decision. Tony Robbins has a podcast, and he talked about when we drive to work. Sometimes we drive to work and we get to work and we literally can't recall what we looked at, what we saw. You can't name 3 things that you passed. Yeah, nothing. But you got there safe because it's your everyday commitment. It's your everyday routine. Things that you do every day effortlessly and subconsciously, unconsciously, consciously, all of the above. It's effortless.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, and I think like the same thing there is that a lot of people, what also too gets marked up, like I said, it's like one of those things, and if you're a hitting coach, for example, is sometimes, you tell a hitter, you're like, hey, stay back. It's like, well, he's not trying to, he might not be trying to get forward, or what does that actually mean to him? And why is he having problems actually staying back? And how is he trying to create force? There's all these lower things that are actually rooted into why he's moving the way that he is. And I think the same thing too is like why we're moving through life the way that we are. There's reasons, and there's a foundation understanding and a basis of where we make our decisions from based on that foundation that we've created. Right. And so I feel like the same thing there as well is like a lot of times there is like I had to start giving myself permission in certain areas that I had made very white and black in my head, right? It's either like you're doing it or you're not doing it. Like it's one decision, not. And I think I had to when I was younger, and I think I had to be more strict with myself where it did need to be very white and black, and I couldn't give myself any kind of like the burn the boats story, right? It's like I think when I was younger, I had to give myself the burn the boats, right? Like, I had to give myself no other options where I had to do this because it forced me to do it. And while that is one method, life is very gray and it's not very white and black. And, again, if you listen to this podcast, a lot of times you'll hear me say, again, the plan is everything, the plan is nothing. And like, it's okay to make decisions and pivot. And when new information comes up, to think again and make other adjustments. Now, I'm not in where for some people, and I think the slide in there is going like, well, like, yeah, but like the sure thing, right? Like I can depend on you no matter what, and all these other areas. Like I'm not giving you an out to not have integrity. That's not what that is talking about. Is there is gray, but you can still have integrity and say no to something that you once said yes to, right? And because especially if it disagrees with a higher priority of something for you in your life, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your maybe it is your integrity. And at one point you said yes to a project and, you don't like how your bosses are going about this and you don't think it's ethical and you don't no longer agree with what they're doing with this. Or maybe it's, you don't agree with how something is going in your life and you committed to this type of diet, but then it started causing all these other issues that you were having and, and it started affecting your mental health and it started doing all these other things. And like, hey, I'm like, I thought I wanted to do this, but I no longer want to. And like that being okay as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that for me personally is I had to detach myself, one, from my decisions and also understanding that, hey, like I'm just making the best decision I can with the provided information that I currently have. And as new information comes in, I'm willing to change my mind. And I'm not sticking to something no matter what. I'm making the most educated decision I can make from where I'm currently sitting. And I think the analogy I kind of think of is kind of being like a captain of a ship, right? Is like you set a destination and a course of how you're going to get from this island to the mainland or something like that, right? And then you start taking off in the boat and then like weather rolls in or the waves, blah, blah, blah. There's another boat and it might interact and you guys might get a little too close to each other. Or, you've also heard that like you could help maybe something happened on another ship and you can go and help somebody. And like, there is times where I need to vary away from that usual route that I typically take. And as the captain, like it's not a lack of integrity. Like, oh, but you said that you were going to take us to the mainland. It's like, no, we still are. But also too, there's other factors that we're going to go into this. And the whole point is like, yes, the plan is everything. The plan is nothing, right? This is the typical route we take. But as I get new information, like I'm going to update my plan. And also too, there's a higher foundation or there's other pieces that are more important than just this one task in itself. It's not this task in a volume. On vacuum, it's this task in totality of how it affects everything, Yeah. And so I think that can be a big piece. And I think personally, I know, Tay, when it comes into that area for you, also too, I don't, maybe touching on that as well of like what that unlocks for you that happened, again, when you were talking through with therapists and things like that as well, that really helped you move past some of those areas for you personally that, might have tied you in that area or made it too white and black for you.
Sure. Well, a lot of things you hit there got my thoughts going.
Yeah.
But so my most recent therapy session, we actually talked about my black and white thinking, and where I like to ignore the gray space. Which
it's easier, to be honest.
It is easier.
It's easy in one area, hard in another.
Hard in another. It's easy when I want it to be, right?
For sure. For sure.
But she then, so, to come full circle, the session, she ended up giving me a worksheet full of different thinking errors. And this thinking error worksheet included black and white thinking, included, and to make it more simple, basically future tripping. So worrying about the future when you can't. It included being a fortune teller, trying to assume that you already know what's going to happen, which is a big one of mine, anticipating behaviors. And so, nonetheless, there was all these different thinking errors. And of course, for me, I had prescribed myself to more than half of them, right? And so, but when I started digging deep into them, a lot of that, so my black and white thinking, one, roots down to I like structure and I like routine and I like, defined things, right? And it took a long time for me to go outside that space. Even as simple as having a long-term relationship. It took, pretty much my whole life to get to that point. And, but to commit to something and to be okay with surrendering the unknown and, essentially, surrendering everything to God and ultimately just, accepting that God's plans are greater than mine, and I can continue making my own plans as long as I want to. But ultimately, like, I can
God's will is going to happen.
Yeah, God's will is going to happen. Yeah. And what God wants for me is greater than what I want for me.
And I've seen what he's done when he's getting his will done, and I just want to be on his team. I want to be on a winning team.
Yeah, powerful. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And so, that took care of that. And then, moving into the fortune telling. Me being a person that studies behavior for so long and being around in the mental health space and for the last 6 years, all I have done is look at people's behavior and essentially fortune tell what they're going to do throughout their time with me, or throughout their time in treatment, or throughout their time in the next 90 days.
And let me not too, this is a common issue also with any
coach, trainer, mentor.
I was gonna say in any way, in some form of like, I don't know if I want to categorize it as like health provider, but I mean like holistic health provider. Like if that's, again, a coach in any type of capacity, a police officer, any of these things, right? And I think along with that, typically, and especially in your scenario too as well, is sometimes in those environments, you can slowly become more cynical thinking, right? Because you're so used to bad things happening.
Sure.
And so you start to predict and start to become more biased to it not turning out well, because most of life, things don't turn out well, or don't happen the way that you would like them to, or whatever.
Right.
And you start to predict that because based on the evidence that like everything more than likely will turn out bad. And then it comes to the next stage of, well, then we probably just shouldn't even do it. Right. And then that's obviously there's a lapse in thinking there is just like, like, again, we are going to fail and things are going to happen. There is going to be mishaps and there is going to be things that don't go my way and there is going to be things that are problematic in that same way. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And it doesn't mean that they're always going to turn out that way, even though most of the time it might turn out bad, and like that's okay too. And that doesn't mean that there wasn't progress still made in trying, even though we didn't succeed to our level of expectation or whatever.
Definitely. And I think as humans, our first error is generalizing someone into a category based off of our experience, no matter how long it is, right? It's easy for us to say, oh, I've seen that before, you should do this. Oh, I've seen this before, you should do this. Oh, I've seen this before, this is probably going to happen. Because really, I mean, ultimately, and you know more about the body than I do. I know, about certain things. But everyone's body is going to be different. And everyone's reality, the way that they perceive it, is going to be different. What I'm seeing is going to be very different than what you're seeing. And, funny enough, it's often that, when I get to watch you in the cage work with players of, from the pro guy to the college guy to, some of our high school people and, getting to watch Cody and Nicole, I see a lot of language that comes back to emotional ailments. And coming back to that simple question that we talked about a couple podcasts ago was, how do you feel? How did that make you feel? And, again, it's these little things that come up. And, during a commitment, these are often the things that come up for us in our head, right? We've committed to something for 3 months. And then all of a sudden that third month comes into our 6-month commitment, say, and you know what? I'm starting to feel like I'm not seeing the expectation, or I thought, I was hoping that this would happen and it hasn't yet. But, Gary Vee talks about that all the time. Like, you want success overnight, and this is something that's built over years.
Yeah, for sure. Could be a decade. Or
it could be a decade.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to look up the definition of committed, because I think that sometimes it gives us a perspective.
For sure.
It says feeling dedication and loyalty to a cause, activity, or job. And it said wholeheartedly or dedicated is synonyms or we can use. And I think that's the thing, is like clearly defining what commitment is, I think is also a really good step. Because again, I think it gets thrown around and watered down quite a bit too as well.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, and in those first two words, I think it's feeling dedicated.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also like those first two words can be tough. How long can you feel dedicated towards this one thing? I mean, it goes back to, I was just talking with someone the other day about, well, they say they want to go play college ball, but you're late to practice, or you don't show up, you don't do your drills, you don't do all this work. Like, these are little things right now, and you say you want to play at this level, but you can't do the little things.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, again, small achievable goals. I want to do small achievable goals right now so that I can do the big achievable goals later.
Yeah. And then also I looked up commitment
Mm-hmm.
instead of committed. Commitment, the state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, etc. Second definition, an engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action. I think that's an interesting, those are kind of more definitions too. I think that also gives some awareness there, is because this is the thing about feelings, like they come and go. Yo, I don't always feel dedicated. I don't always feel motivated. I don't always feel good and ready to go do what I want to go do. I don't wake up every morning fired up, and I know some of y'all are like, no way. Like, I don't wake up every morning ready to rock, right?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, it's become, I think in a lot of ways it's also like they go hand in hand, where I think everything, just like the Bible kind of rotates back that as well, is like everything being rooted back to love. And what I mean by that is, like, commitment for me is also rooted back to love in one way or another, even that my love for God, my love for others, love for myself, things like that, right? And you go into that as being like, when I look at that as like, for example, like love isn't a feeling, it's a choice, right? And so when I look at that, it's like, hey, I can choose right now, again, like you talked about in the very beginning, like I can make a decision here, right? And when it comes to this, it's like, yes, I am feeling tired. I am feeling these things. That doesn't mean to negate my feelings. That's not what this means either, too. And I think that's another thing, is people will, as a compensation, will negate their feelings and then just go, well, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I got to go do this. I got to go do this. And people can use that as a compensation. But like, like we talked about the other day, it's like when you negate your feelings, it's, I think your analogy was, it's like dirty laundry, right? It's like you can keep throwing that dirty laundry to the side. Like the laundry's still there, and it still needs to get unpacked and still needs to get cleaned here.
Yes.
And you can try to ignore it as long as you want, but like start to smell. It's going to start taking over your life at one point if you just keep throwing it to the side. And so it's not to negate your feelings, but it is to address your feelings, and a lot of times do it anyways. Right. And what I mean by that is, like, it's not to say like, oh, you're tired right now, oh, we can't address it. No. We're gonna talk about why you're tired, right? And why those things are coming up. And also too, you do need to unpack those feelings and why that's, happening, or why you don't feel motivated, or why you don't feel inspired. All of that is important. It's not to negate that. And maybe you might need to push that laundry to the side. Like, just like we have laundry baskets, right? Like, at the same time, when it gets built up to a certain point, we need to unpack those things, or, clean our clothes and, et cetera. And, again, and when we don't do that, it starts to take over our lives in that same way, and take over our living spaces, and starts to, clutter our brain and clutter our living space and how we go about life. And, I think it's the same thing there, is like, a lot of times when I'm committed to something and I have made a decision to be committed to something, it's definitely not, it's easy to commit to something when you feel great.
Yeah.
And when everything's going your way, great. When everything's rolling the right way, everything's happening how you want it to happen, easy. I wouldn't even say that's commitment.
Right.
I honestly would say that that's probably more, it's like water, right? It's just going the easiest route.
Yeah.
Like when everything's flowing really well and it's leading to great things, like, of course it's easy to be committed. Like, duh. I mean, someone that's not even committed could be committed in that moment, right? Like, that's easy. It's about being committed when it's easy to not be. When it's easy to not be committed, that's when commitment is really tested. And that's what I used to bring up too. Like, like customer service, when I used to bring it up at Planet Fitness, it's like, yo, it's easy to have good customer service when the customer's happy with you and everything's going well. And you, again, for us, it's like, their kid just committed, and they're so enthused with your, okay, well, how about when the kid, has had 2 bad weekends in a row, and the family also too is, tough on money right now because mom just lost her job, and dad just got diagnosed with cancer. And then like you become the direction of that. And like, how can you help navigate through those situations, and unpack and help somebody on the other side? How good is your customer service in that regard, and solutions and ways that you can help? And I think when you go back into commitment there, it's like, hey, like, okay, what does that look like for me today when I don't feel like it? Or, again, like little moments, like let's say, like even the other day for me, let's take an easier example, right? Like I woke up, like just got back from winter meetings, right? And like I wake up 5 a.m. like I'm crazy tired. Like not only crazy tired, but like I feel terrible, right?
Yeah.
Like I literally I felt like Mike Tyson, like my spine hurt, like it's spinal, like it hurt, like my spine hurt, my legs hurt. I felt like I had nothing, like literally I just did a leg day, like I didn't want to get out of bed, like I felt ache, all the normal, things that like, with all of that, right? And we had things that we committed to getting out this week and some things that we needed to get done. I didn't feel like coming in. I didn't feel like, doing these other things, but also too, it was more motivating for me of almost that thought process, like, well, what happens if I don't, right? If I do choose this option today, what does that look like? If I do choose to give in to my feelings and what I'm currently feeling and how nice it would be to just sit in bed and watch Netflix, like I have wired my brain in that area, right? Of I know where those choices lead. And while it will satisfy me in a moment, and not that that necessarily like it's sometimes to a fault for me. Like sometimes I do need to take a day off and I do need to take a rest and all those things, right? Like I've gone to the other side of that where I have to, tell myself that in other moments, but also a strength for me is that when we go into those areas is that like, hey, like I know what the other side of that, like what happens when I don't go to the gym? What happens when I don't eat healthy, right? And getting past some of those areas, which again are still things I battle with every single day, right? But in those same areas is like I know what those short-term indulgences, what that turns into if I continue to choose those all the time, and then like how that shapes, how things are affected. And so like I think in the same way there is that's what I mean is like in that moment, like that's a conscious choice, right? It's like, and especially too, it's a little bit different. Sometimes, like, let's say you're working for somebody or you're at a corporation and you have, scheduled a certain amount of days of sick days and, paid time off and what that looks like. Okay, my PTO and I've used all this stuff. Like, I don't even have an option. Like, I got to go or whatever, right? Okay, that's one thing. It's a whole other thing for me. Like, it's like, well, I own the business, right? So I was like, I could stay home. And like, it'd be fine. Like, no one's going to be mad at me that I stayed home. I don't take many days off. Yeah. So it's like, if I took a day off, like, no one's going to, bat an eye. But for me personally, it's like, well, my commitment then there comes from, it's like, to our team, to God, to my, family, to all these things of commitments that I've made where it's like, yeah, hey, like, again, like, I'm in this area. There's ways that I can get around this and without, risking X, Y, Z and things I'm being mindful of. And I think, for that is like, I think the big thing is reminding yourself in those moments is like, you can't listen to your feelings. And I think, from a physiological perspective, or again, when you look into like the brain and like how it works is like in these situations, you can train your brain literally to turn on different parts of your brain. So instead of the emotional part of your brain, right, you can turn on the thinking, cognitive part of your brain. And when these stressful situations come up, you can think through them rather than be emotionally pulled from one way to another, like a roller coaster as you're going through them. And again, just like your body, like you can train your brain to respond differently to these situations. And it does take training, just like training the body. And just like when you're training the body, most of the time you're really training the brain and the CNS system anyways. But, I think that that's a big piece is that for people to understand there is that like you can train your brain to get out of those emotional states. And like we talked about a couple podcasts ago, it's like, okay, after your emotions, like then what? You're still going to have to make a decision. And so at the end of the day, like, that is something that, again, when I think was really helped and trained into me when I was playing sports was I promise you every morning when I woke up at 4 a.m. to go lift, I promise you I didn't want to lift. There was not a single time that I woke up at 4 a.m. when we had a team lift that I wanted to go lift. Like I didn't, ever. Right. Like, and we had to continue to do those things and like overcome that adversity just in those moments, let alone all the other moments of my life where like it trained that into my brain where again, like I was shaping my brain with every decision that I made there of not leaning into. And also on the opposite way, you're always training your brain if you know it or not, because if I continue to choose the opposite way, and I keep giving into my emotions constantly and keep giving into all those things, well, now I'm training my brain to do the opposite, right? Now I'm training it to give in, I'm training to like not have control, right? To not have self-control and to not, turn on the cognitive part of my brain and just to give into my feelings and my emotions. It's like, again, let's say you're trying to go to the gym now, right? It's like, yeah, every time that I choose not to, even though I was supposed to, right? Or whatever, it's like, that's my commitment to myself, right? And I'm training my brain to let my feelings like, this morning it's a little cold outside. I was up real late last night and all these things. And again, it's not to negate that sometimes I do need to sleep in and sometimes I do need to get a little bit more rest and I do need to go to bed earlier and I do need to address those things that are causing some of that, and maybe the diet side, or maybe I need to, my routines in the morning and what that is, like, for sure.
Yeah.
But also too, even if you do all of that, you're going to have mornings you wake up and you just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And you just, everybody else is sleeping in. Why can't I? And everybody else is doing this, and why can't I? And again, you do what everybody else does, and you're going to get what everybody else has, and their results, and the things that they're going through as well. So I do think that is, a bigger thing of like understanding that with commitment is we got to take feeling away from the. I think it's a very different thing. Is like feeling committed, right? Is like, again, feeling. Right, rather than like commitment, right? Those those definitions were different, right? Is one was a state of being.
Yep.
And the other one was feeling committed, right? Or dedicated.
Yeah.
And those are very different things. One's a feeling, right? And one's a state of being, right? And that's I start to think of it like, how do we train it to be a state of being and my new norm and not something that I do occasionally? Right.
Well, and a lot of pretty much everything that you just said is basically, mental performance.
Yes.
All of that is, reset, recover. What are your cues? What are your signals to yourself? What are your internal, signals going on that are telling you to do X, Y, and Z? 4 a.m. wake up. Nobody wants to do that.
Yes.
But also, if
there's a psycho out there that wants to do that.
There is. You're right.
You have your own problems, okay?
Yeah.
Just manifests in a different way. Okay?
Exactly. They're also probably going to bed at like 5 p.m.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, well, good for them.
Yeah.
But there's so many different things that we can train ourselves to do. Whether it's the snap of the fingers, whether it's 3 deep breaths, whether it's we see a lot of athletes. The rubber bands. They smack their chest. They hit their helmet.
Yeah.
All these different things that we think are just charisma, but a lot of times those are their reset and recover cues. It's funny that you had brought that up, because just recently, as we started with our new software for our in-house members, that was part of my mental performance questionnaire, was the reset and recover, and how quickly can you do so. When you have an error, when you experience an error, how quickly can you recover, and do you have a physical, tangible signal to tell yourself to do so? Because it's very easy to get lost in the I don't want to, I don't feel like it, I'm tired, I don't feel good. Well, I did it so many times.
I'm going to call that the excuse bus.
Exactly.
The excuse bus.
Exactly. Yeah. And our excuse bus can start speeding real fast. Right? Yeah. Well,
there's a lot of
pull
people
yourself
on this
over.
bus. There's a lot of people on this bus.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Well, pull yourself over and find your cues. Yeah.
Get out the bus.
And even, simple tasks. A lot of people, think that imagery is the easiest thing to do. Imagery is actually a learned task over time. It's not as easy as we'd like it to be, but if you can practice imagery and if you can hone in on that, that is one of the greatest ways to see different options. See as silly as it sounds, see yourself make an error and see yourself adjust. See yourself experience what you're afraid of. Your greatest fear, your fear of the unknown, see it in your head and go through the motions. That way, when it happens, if it happens in real life, you've already got 3 other routes to take, because you've already anticipated that might happen.
I think that's a powerful thing that I don't want to run past. That is that I think a lot of people think of imagery of just seeing themselves be successful.
Sure.
And it's not, again, like there's going to be hiccups. And so you need to, hey, I'm going to make errors. I'm going to strike out. I'm going to as a coach, I'm going to make the wrong call. I'm going to send the guy when I should have held him. All those things are going to happen. I didn't take the situation holistically. I took it too lightly. I took this other team too lightly. How we went through practice this week was wrong. I need to make adjustments, right? And so all of that. And also too, it's not just for athletes. Like, imagery is not just for an athlete.
Right.
And it's so, again, emotionally helpful in those situations, because you already emotionally ran through it previously and like how you were going to recover from it. And you've already wired your brain, because the powerful part about imagery and like, again, how your brain works, and from what I've studied with the brain, is like, even when we watch TV, your brain has a hard time deciphering if it's really happening.
Correct.
Right. Or if it's not really happening. So when we watch, like, for example, like I watch MMA fights all the time. And when I watch the guy hit, like, I can feel my body tensing. Like when I hit it, right? It's like, and they call it like pre-tensioning in the body. But like my firing patterns are happening because my brain is perceiving that action. Like when he goes to kick the guy, well, I know what it's like to kick somebody, and I know what it's like to hit somebody, and I know what it's like to catch one of those, or brace those. So my body starts bracing in certain areas because I'm used to doing that activity. It's like also when you're watching a video and there's a foul ball, and all of a sudden it flies into the screen, and we all flinch. It's like your brain doesn't know that it's fake, right? It doesn't know that you're on a cell phone. Like it really thinks that a ball's flying at you and it's reacting. And so like, I think like with that, right, as imagery, it's like, especially too, even if you prepared yourself, like, hey, this ball is about to fly at you. Like if I told you before a ball is going to fly at you, hey, this ball's about to fly at you. Like when we're playing catch, you're ready, you're prepared. You know that, again, you're basing an action. Like if this happens, I'm going to do X.
Yes.
Right. And so you're prepared for that. And so I think that's the same thing as like really wanting to be committed to something is first also too going in. It's like, hey, and one thing that really helps is literally with imagery tied together is actually having the conversations around also with your coach, your support staff, your family, your friends, your whatever is, and I also do that as a leader a lot, is like, I like to go to them and say, hey, these are the hiccups that are probably going to happen. Let's talk about them now.
Yep.
Right?
100%.
And these things are going to happen. We know they're going to happen in this thing. Like, for example, we're facing this team. They love to run. They love to steal. They love to push the envelope, right? Again, for example, if you watched 2022 Florida softball, they like to run. They're going to push the envelope. They're going to try to take an extra bag. They're going to try to steal. They already know that, right? So, for example, when LSU was doing their game planning for Florida, that was part of the game planning. They told the whole team, hey, they're going to try to put pressure on us like this. What does that mentally immediately do? Our job, they're going to run into a lot of outs, right? We need to not get scattered when they happen. We know they're going to do this. This is their type of play. This is how they're going to try to beat us. And this is how they beat their competition a lot of the time. They like to run and put pressure on defenses. Yep. And then if, again, people can't play catch, they're throwing the ball around, all these different things, okay, that's going to be those issues. For example, another one, when I was in junior college, we used to play this team, and they still play generally the same. We used to play this team that was a big small ball team. And so if that week we would practice bunt defense so much more than every other week, because they're going to drop down undoubtedly the most amount of bunts we'd probably see the whole season, because that's how they like to play. And they're going to do bunts and runs and slashes and all these other things that try to put pressure on us as a defense and to get us rattled and start throwing the ball around, right? But when we would go into it expecting them to do that, and also too, we would practice for it being even worse. Like our coach would put time limits. Like typically you have 4 seconds to throw somebody out, right? Like that's like you're kind of, you want to be underneath 4 seconds, right? Well, that week he'd give us like 3.5 seconds, or, again, he would lower it down. So it put even more pressure on us to get these done and execute and be free and easy as we went to go play. And then also too, we were expecting them to bunt. We're expecting them to run. So now when they run, I don't all of a sudden go into panic mode. I'm like, in my head before that pitch, they're running, they're bunting, they're whatever. I'm expecting them to do that. Right. And so when they do that, like, again, our team as a team, then we can also, when it does happen as a leader, right? Or captain, another leader, whatever, teammate, whatever you want to call it, could be leadership in any of those ways, is you walk back up and say, hey, like, remember guys, we expected them to do this, right? We talked about this pregame. We knew that, again, remember what game plans and the thing we put in place to make that happen. If you're going out to do a mound meeting, it's the same thing. Like, hey guys, again, this is what we practiced for all week, right? We knew that they were going to do this. We know they're going to run on us. Great. They're trying to put a little pressure on us. We're going to slow them down right now. I came out for, meeting. We're killing some of their momentum. And then here, look, this next pitch, they're probably going to do a fake bunt and steal or something like that, right? So expect it to happen, right? Expect it to happen, and, slow your heart rates down. We just got to play catch. We know we can get these outs with, only 3.5 seconds, and, let's play.
Be open to multiple possibilities.
For sure.
Yeah. be open to multiple possibilities. And I think, a lot of what you said oddly made me think about watching Little League and how unpredictable they can be
all over the place
because they're all over the place, right? And I think that's the fun part of Little League.
Throw the ball, throw the ball. Would you just throw the ball? He's just like pumping out there.
The ball goes by, second and third. They both just watch it pass. And
100%.
it's like you really can't have any expectations.
For sure.
And, it forces me to think of, challenging ourselves to, almost, sometimes think as though you're watching Little League. Think of the unpredictable. Think of, of all the things that could happen, try to think of at least the top 5.
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Yeah. And I was going to say the other thing is like, stop attaching yourself to outcomes, and that's a big part as well. Is like, hey, like at the end of the day, we're going to put some effort in here. And we're going to prepare for this bunt defense and all these other things. And also, too, at the end of the day, the reason they run their offense this way is because it's useful and it works on a lot of guys. And it does put pressure on defenses and it does do these other things. And, we're going to do our best to defend it. And maybe it's a bad matchup for us. Maybe maybe we bang, like we hit, but bunt defense and some of these other ways and running all, like, for example, when most teams play like a mid-majors and like the SWAC, which is HBCUs, like, like some of those lineups have 7 guys that run, 4-1s, like, on their team. And that's a different type of baseball.
Right.
They slap balls on the ground. They get it through the infield. They're getting doubles on balls that should be singles. They're really fast. They get on first base. They're going to steal second. They're going to steal third. And sometimes they're going to steal home. And it's a very different type of baseball. And that's how they know that that's their best chance of winning. Yeah. And so they can rattle a lot of traditional teams because they're not used to playing that way and playing against competition that is willing to get out because that's how they win games. And so, I think that's the other thing is like along with it is just like, hey, like I got to detach myself first off. And it comes back to that foundation is that a lot of times we don't want to make commitments because like we're afraid, okay, well, what if it doesn't go the way that I want it to be? Right. And what if I make the wrong decision and what if and all these things.
I don't get my expectation.
And I think when you really say that out loud and then it's met with, what if it does happen? And then you say it with a different tone and say, so what? Right. And one of the things I used to always tell our hitters, our team is if you would have caught me, 6 years ago now, if you would have caught me high school baseball coach, one of the things you always heard me preaching to our players when anything would happen would be, I would say, play the game. The guy would make an error and I would yell out, hey, get locked back in, play the game. Play the game. Play the game. Now that was a cue for them, right? And what I would do to use that to get them back recentered is we practice that in practice. What I would do is I would random pitcher on the mound, things like this as well. And I'd take a deck of cards, right? Shuffle them. You like that?
Yep.
Right? So snap all the cards, right? Boom, got the cards together. And I would have a deck of cards, right? And so what I would do is the pitcher on the mound, he would come out and he'd slide a card out, right? And it would say, on the front of the card, it would say, 2 outs, guy on first, down by 1 run, whatever. A situation you didn't get to pick. Right? It's a random luck of the draw. So you might get on the mound and you already have 2 outs. You might get on the mound and you have no outs, bases loaded. Right? You might get on the mound and, whatever that is, and the defense has got to play it, right? And so what I would always tell our team is like, hey, more often than not, in life and in baseball, like you're not going to get to pick the situation. Things are not going to go your way, but you have to play it like you did pick the situation, like you did pick to be here. And when you do that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you're feeling. Of course, you wouldn't want to be in this situation or that situation. And you can't sit here and go, well, I wish we were up by 2. Who cares? Right. It doesn't matter. Like, play the game. Whatever the situation is, we're playing the game. If we just made 3 errors in a row, play the game. If we made 18 errors in a row, play the game. You don't have another choice. If you really think about it, I can sit here and be butthurt. And I can sit here in my life and go, well, if that wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have bounced my account. And if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have lost this job and I would be over here and I could have had this life and I could have had the white picket fence and I could have bro, play the game. Like, if everybody got what they want, if that was the situation, great, but that is not the situation.
Right.
Right? You have to play the situation that you currently have that is right in front of you. And again, is what God has you doing and what he's teaching you through the situation and what you can pull from it, rather than wishing you were in another situation doesn't help you in this situation. It's not, that's a bad decision.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, you need to play the game. Right? And it also comes back where I've talked about that before in other podcasts where, I'm thinking of, what's his name? Who's that Navy SEAL? Jocko.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Jocko has that one video where he talks about, he's like, good.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
It's that same mindset, right?
Yep.
It's just like, again, something isn't your way, like, good.
Yep.
Like, we're going to make an adjustment. It's going to make our team better now. And we're going to learn how to manage that defense, or we made an error, or something, the umpire made a bad call, or, our jerseys didn't come in time and now we got to play with our old ones, or good.
Yeah.
Good. Like, good. The guy we made an error. Like, good. Now let's see how we play when we make an error, because this is going to be the last time we make an error.
Yeah.
And also, too, it happened early in the season. Great. It's going to, like, I just talked to a local high school baseball coach here the other day, and they were playing in their little World Series, and their team was playing a little internal World Series that they were doing, right? And we talked about that they just had played in another championship for like a summer league or something that they were playing in, right? And in the championship game and the semi-final game, they made some crucial errors and mistakes at the plate, and some things that, again, they watched like strike three right down the middle when coach told him it was going to happen. And then boom, he just watched it right down the middle. And I'm like, well, that's fine, because like, you want those things to show up early, especially when someone's younger, when it doesn't really matter, when you are in practice, when you are these other things. And also too, even when it is championship game and they really want to win that championship. Nobody wants to lose.
Yeah.
But like, when you have lost, it just teaches you and you have experience, right? And when you view it that way, it's like, okay, hey, like, we've been through this now, and now I've been in these situations and I've learned now, and it's made me more savvy as a person, right? Like, good, right? Play the game. And most of life is not going to go your way, and you got to play the game. And that's where I would recenter our players all the time, and that's really good for our players, but really good for anybody in life when you're going those situations, is like, things are going to happen, right? And things are not going to go your way. And at the end of the day, like the funny part is we're all playing that game. And guess what? The other team, when they made their 2 errors, I bet you didn't sit there and pout. You were probably excited because things were going your way, right? Well, they had to deal with that too. And they had to play the game. And they had to try to keep it as close as possible that they could have a chance to come back in the end. And the whole point is if you can realize that everybody is losing and we're all playing the game, right? And we're all figuring out better ways to overcome. And the team, it's not that you'll never face adversity. It's the team that can overcome adversity the most. And the most adversity is the team that typically is really going to be that's going to outrun and another way of saying this as well is, I remember Adrian Dinkle, he used to tell us on opening day, he used to say, the team that wins today is the team that can manage their emotions. Because on opening day, everybody's fired up, ready to go. They want to do these things. They have these expectations. You're like, the team that can manage their emotions and the team that can just come out and play on opening day is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that is not only managing your emotions, but you're managing your anxiety.
Yeah.
How well is your anxiety management? And that's good anxiety and bad anxiety. We get so juiced up because we're having a big game. Well, a lot of us can't actually perform at our peak performance level when we're all juiced up. A lot of us have to actually slow ourselves down, hold our breath instead of take 3 deep breaths. Hold your breath. There's different cues and different resets for, different people. But, a lot of that too is, are you aware when you're experiencing anxiety? Are you aware when you're too hyped up to actually hit your peak performance level? And actually, even talking about your peak performance level, do you know what your peak performance level is and where you need to be to meet it?
For sure. And the same thing there is, again, when the first thing doesn't go your way, right? In any of those situations, life, opening day, whatever that is, right? Playoffs, World Series, whatever.
Yep.
Right? Things are, first off, again, like we talked about beforehand, things are not going to go your way. Expect it before you walk in. Not going to go your way. Umpire's going to make a bad call. You're going to trip, whatever. Guy tags you out even though you hit a double. Like,
Right.
guy robs your home run. Whatever, right? You got charged for something in your bank and you overdrafted. Okay, things are not going to go your way. You got fired from your job. They're doing layoffs, right? Boss doesn't appreciate you. You mouthed off, you had a hard day at home first and whatever. Like, things are not going to go your way, right? At the end of the day, it's more about, again, stop looking at things in a vacuum, right? That happens to everybody. It's how we respond to those things, right? It's how we respond when things don't go our way.
Yeah.
And also, too, it's how we manage that, yeah, hey, you know what? You might have got me for 2 innings, but third inning, I reset.
Yeah.
Right? And you know what? And if I just realized, maybe for some of us, it was 1 inning. Some of us, it took all the way to the 9th inning.
Yep.
Until I could finally reset. Sometimes it was game 10. Whenever you figure it out, you can't sit there on lapse time. Oh, if I would have recovered sooner. And this fairy tale land of non-reality of what could have happened.
Right.
That's not where you're living.
No.
This is the here and now.
Exactly. And I think, baseball and softball is a huge moment to moment game. It's play to play. One play at a time. Execute one play at a time.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the entire game.
Yeah.
Just be where your feet are, be in the moment, and execute that moment.
Yeah, 100%. And to sit there and that's not easier said than done, for sure. And that's where it becomes, a bigger piece there of understanding okay, hey, if I'm in that space, and I realize hey, this isn't going to be, and that's when I brought that up a minute ago, is the team that can manage is not the team that's perfect. It's the team who can recover the quickest.
Yep.
Right? Because those things are going to happen.
Yep.
Right? So when you know those things are going to happen and you put yourself in the place of being hey, good. If you catch yourself in the 2nd inning, good. Now is better than next inning.
Yep.
Don't care about the other innings because again, what I feel like our minds, and again, the devil, all those other things, again, it's like the same thing of depression. You're focusing on what had happened.
Yeah.
And that has no, again, impact on how you can act going forward, right? In the sense of the mindset that I can be in unless I let it, right? And yes, don't get me wrong, you might have made decisions that affect the options that you have going forward, but again, play the game. Right. You don't get to pick the situation, right? At the end of the day, this is the card you were dealt, right? That's why I like to also use the cards. This is the card you were dealt. Remember in practice, you didn't get to pick that bases were loaded. You didn't get to pick that you were down 2 runs. You didn't get to pick that you were up 5 runs. This is the card you were dealt. Play the game with the cards that you were dealt, right? And go from there. And again, along with it is taking that into that level of commitment is that I get to choose. I have the choice here, right? That it's not that your feelings aren't real. It's not that that things don't need to be addressed. It isn't that it's fair. It isn't by not talking about it or not responding to something or whatever doesn't mean that you're conceding or that you're surrendering that in that sense that and that L or whatever. It's that no. I'm choosing from this point forward to be a professional, right? Yeah. Or I'm choosing what going forward, my attitude, I'm choosing how I'm going to attack this. I'm also choosing to not stay here any longer. I'm also choosing to reshape my life and everything that's going to happen and not continue to lose. I'm choosing I had 1 flat tire. So instead of, you know what, I don't want to stop and repair this tire and I'm going to destroy the rest of my car and pop all my other 4 tires because one bad thing happened in my day, so I might as well flatten all the rest of the tires. I can choose just to get out and repair the tire and go, hey, I'm just playing the game. I got a flat tire on the way to work today and I got out the car and I fixed the tire and I got to work, right? I didn't let it ruin the rest of my day.
Right.
Because I can choose to. Right. And that is my choice. And I'm not just being ran and led by my emotions from moment to moment. And I can choose to recover and not let that last moment or my last failure affect this one.
Yeah. And I think that's where, goal alignment and setting your intentions comes into play because ultimately, like if my end goal is this, and let's say, what you said, I've been doing this and I've decided that I'm going to leave. Well, okay, that's fine. Honor yourself in that decision. Open the communication on what that looks like with who it involves. Communicate those thoughts, and ultimately think to yourself, okay, if you get off this course, are you getting off your alignment for what you originally wanted? If what you originally wanted, what your end goal, if that has changed, then yeah, your alignment is probably going to change too.
For sure.
A lot of us, we start to feel that guilt and that shame. Oh, well, now I'm Frosty the Snowflake.
Yeah.
And well, no, it's not that you're flaky. It's that, there's communication behind that. And when we communicate those things properly versus ignoring it and running from those thoughts and running from those emotions and running from all those feelings and then just abandoning our commitments, well, that's a lot different than discussing the matter, discussing where you feel, how you feel, where you're at along your journey. If sometimes our goals are going to change, and that's also okay.
Yeah. And also too, sometimes, you need to view a lot of things with context too, and not look at it so white and black, right? Like
thinking error.
Yeah. Like sometimes hey, the situation has changed dramatically, right? And if you're willing to think again, right, and willing to change your mind, right, and not look at it like this is what I have to do to the end of time because I made this decision at one point. And also you look at it and go, hey, sometimes my real intention is, like, let's say it's the there might be a higher commitment that you have made that is now conflicting with a recent commitment that you have made. So let's say my higher commitment is my higher commitment with my team is for everyone to be healthy, right? Like going into whatever, a certain date or something like that, right? Or to keep generally like mentally health, like our team to get somewhere. And that's a goal that you've made, right? But then you've also made another commitment where it's like, exercising or something like that. You want them to get up at 4 a.m., And then one day you guys got back from your travel trip at 2 a.m., right? And you normally would lift at 4 a.m., right? Are you going to go, you know what? We did commit to lifting at 4 a.m. every single day. So all you guys, I know we just got back from this trip. You guys been sleeping on the bus. Take your 2 hours of sleep. We're going to be lifting. I'll see you guys in 2 hours. Like, okay. All right. And I know I'm using a drastic example, but let that be 5 hours of sleep. Let that be 6 hours of sleep. Let that be, you know what? We're not going to lift on Thursday. Instead, we're going to lift Friday, or maybe we're not going to lift till next Monday, right?
Yeah.
And being more flexible when it comes into, and again, that's why I think when you look and keep the macro in mind, right? Those micro decisions start to make sense when your foundation you have a solid foundation. If you don't have a solid foundation of what is truly important and these principles that you're really tied to in a hierarchy of decision making, now if everything is level, everything's on the same level, well, and then they start conflicting with each other, well, you don't know what to prioritize over one another because you've not created a foundation and saying, hey, when all else hits the fan, these are the 4 things that are most important to me, right? And, wins and losses might not be, and probably shouldn't be, right, in your top foundation of how, that's important to you as a coach and things that now, does it mean that it's not important? No, it means that it's important. It's just on a lower tier.
Sure.
Right? And it's still something that's really important why we make decisions in other areas, but it's not more important than like, one of my players' mental health, or it's not more important than my family, or it's not more important than my relationship with God. Okay, great. Well, those are some other things that I have to put inside there. It doesn't mean that it's not important, right? It is important. It's just not more important. And I can't let it become more important to these foundation things that are way, again, more important to me, right? And so I got to make sure that I separate those when I'm going into it. And I think that that's, a really big piece that we have to keep in mind. Yeah, no, and that's just something, again, that's something we got to continue to keep in mind. And, as you go through, like it really does help you make decisions when you view it that way. They're like, hey, I'm not saying that this isn't important. I'm just saying it's not more important than X, right? And that can help me layer and add some context into my thinking that not every decision is on the same tier of decision making, and it's not as important as these other things. And sometimes we can let those get out of whack, and we start to let lower tier items onto our top tier. And you make wins and losses everything. Let's say it's a contract year for you as a coach, and you're like, we got to make playoffs and blah blah blah. Or again, like let's say you're University of Tampa, right? And they're Division II champs all the time, and they have all these rings and all these things, and all of a sudden wins and losses become more important than your players. Well, it's like, well, prioritizing your players is why you were getting all the wins.
Yep.
So now, again, if you keep your hierarchy in order, you're going to get your wins, right? But if you all of a sudden put those in front of the players and those things, it's like, well, all of a sudden your results and everything's going to start falling out of place because you've messed up your decision making through these tiers and through these lenses, that not everything is as important as other things that, you're doing and what you're prioritizing.
For sure. And I think, one thing I would challenge all of our listeners with is actually thinking about, what you value the most and what that hierarchy is. A lot of us don't actually know what that is until we write it down on paper.
For sure.
Or haven't given it some thought, maybe in a while.
Yeah.
Once we are in our adult life and we're parents, we're coaches, we're, an employee, we're a boss, we're all these different roles.
Yeah.
We start to put those things on the back burner and put it in our back pocket, and, we don't look at it for a long time. So, I would challenge all of our listeners to, do a little values list and see where you are right now.
Yeah, no, and I think that might be something, some really good questions. And again, maybe we can make a resource for that. Is like, for example, someone did a little podcast a little while back, and the guy was talking about like money, right? He's like, okay, if I gave you $1 million, what is that more important than, right? Or like, and so a lot of people in the beginning is like, well, money's really important. Well, it's not that money isn't important, right? But is it become more important than it really is? And what I mean by that is like, he goes to the thing and goes, hey, I'll give you $1 million. How about I say I'll give you $1 million, but like you're going to die tomorrow. Right. Like, okay, well, health is more important than the $1 million, right? Okay, great. Well, okay, I'll give you $1 million, but I'll give you $1 million, but you're going to be sick for the rest of your life, right? Okay, you got those. Okay, well, so life is more important, health is more important. Okay, great. Okay, I got those two established. That's, inside. Okay, well, I'll give you $1 million, but, your mom's going to die or something like that. It's like, okay, your family's more important than that $1 million or whatever that looks like, right? And that's going to be different. Everybody's values of what that is. Maybe your relationship with your mom isn't, like maybe you've never even talked to your mother, and like that is an important relationship in your life. Like, okay, well, there's other things, again, your family or, things that you value, and you got to figure out, like you're saying, is like when you start those type of questions start to help you distinguish what are your tiers and what's important and in what order. And so I think, again, John Maxwell, like he has this book where it's called Great Leaders Ask Great Questions. And he talks about questions as keys, right? And it's amazing, kind of like therapists, right? When they ask you questions, they're keys and unlocks to doors that you couldn't get to. And when you ask questions, it puts things in perspective. It gives awareness. It gives, other things. Like, for example, I saw Casey Fisk posted this question yesterday. He goes, do you want to be the best player? He's asking his daughter. He was like, do you want to be the best player on your team? Blah, 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 blah. And she's like, yeah, I want to be the best player on the team. She's like, so what you're saying is you want all your other teammates to be worse than you. And she goes, well, no, blah, blah, blah. It's like, hold on though, right? Like, it's like, you gotta, and I think why that becomes, big there is, again, like questions are big unlocks, and it also can bring awareness to areas that, like we might not be willing to do, or tasks that we're not willing to do, because we don't realize that what comes with me being the best player on the team is, well, the other players are probably worse than I am. And am I okay with that? And am I okay with doing things that are outside what they're doing?
Right.
And also too, does that mean that I'm wishing bad upon my teammates? Like, no, but at the same time, I have to be willing, right? That to be the best player on the team. And there is some mental blocks that I can put in my own head of what that looks like. And I think that, like, again, questions are powerful keys.
For sure.
And it's a big thing that, can be very, beneficial and unlocks for us for sure.
For sure. Well, and I think a lot of us too, we want things until we know what it looks like.
I like the idea of it.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. When I was coaching youth boxing, kids boxing, you'd have the best kid in the class go up against another kid and he'd get popped in the face. And he's like, oh, well, he hit me in the face. Well, this is boxing. You thought you weren't going to get punched in the face? Like, you want to box or you want to sit on the sidelines and watch?
Yeah.
Like, which one do you want to do? And either one is fine, but tell me now before this kid pops you in the face again, or move your head. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so again, like, we have these ideas and it looks fun and it looks nice until it's up to us to do the work and it's up to us to do it. And then again, reevaluate, see where you're at, see how you feel, and you have to be honest with yourself. Don't think about and don't worry what everybody else is expecting of you. I think we get lost in that too. Well, my mom and dad want me to do this. Okay, well, if they want you to do it, but you don't want to do it, how long are you really going to do it for?
For sure.
You know, and are you going to be fulfilled? Because ultimately, I promise you, they want you to be happy. Everybody who loves you wants you to be happy. And if you're making sacrifices for them that aren't going to make you happy, you're really not doing them a service.
For sure. Yeah. And that's the big thing is, like you said, is going back into that thought process of hierarchy, right? Like, yeah, they want what's best for you, but part of what's best for you is the foundational tier of they want you to be happy.
Yes.
Right. And it doesn't mean happy all the time. And then you're not going to have to sacrifice and all these other things. But more so, I guess we're talking about more of like, you know, you'd have joy in your life and the fulfillment and all those other things. Right. And so, and there's a way of getting, you know, all those things without, unless we put things out of order. Right. And so I think that's, you know, a big piece and just things we have to keep in mind. You know, again, when we're being committed to things is there's depth to that. And it isn't just one way or another. And it isn't, I made one decision and I can never change my mind and all of that. Like, there's context and life is gray. And it's not just this or that. And even though when I was younger and sometimes I can fall into that habit now, I catch myself and I'm like, hey, you know, you can change your mind. You know, hey, you know, it's okay to pivot here. Hey, just because you know, made the decision X, Y, and Z, like, the situation has changed and like, that's okay. And that's not a weak leader. That makes you a strong leader, is that you're willing to look at what the situation is and pivot. And if you're not willing to pivot, you're a weaker leader, right? You're a weaker component, you know, imagine as an opponent, if your opponent is not willing to change their strategy, if your opponent is not willing to make adjustments, if your opponent is not willing to make pivots, right? Well, and if you think about a pivot, like a pivot in boxing, I'm pivoting to change my position, right? To change my orientation so that I'm in a more advantageous position to do what I ultimately wanted to do in the first place.
Well, and that's where a lot of fighters historically, I mean, going back decades, would watch film, right? You want to watch the fighter, see what their moves are, or see the pitcher, see how this person hits. You know, you try to see what their movement is so that you can beat them. But again, you're watching because you know that you have to change something.
Yeah.
And it's that, again, bringing awareness to what needs to change.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's just the big spot there, is just like understanding that, like, at the end of the day, you know, there's commitment tiers, right? And also understanding, again, everything's not white and black. There's some gray. I need context. I need to get more awareness of all those things and keep my big things in focus. And it really starts to clean up a lot of your thoughts. And it also can be grounding questions for you. Okay, how does this affect your relationship with God? How does this affect your relationship with your family? How does this affect your relationship with yourself, right? Like, how does this affect your relationship with your friends? And if those are your four values, and, you know, in what order those are for you, right? Yeah. And whatever that looks like, right? Or your job or your career or whatever you value and what that looks like for you. And those are some foundational things, like, okay, those questions can give me a lot of awareness and actually give me a lot of clarity. And then also too, the other question, I always use this with the girlfriend of trying to get her to pick food, right? Yeah. Is what don't you want to eat, right? Instead of what do you want to eat, what don't you want to eat, right? Well, I don't want Mexican food and I don't want Italian food. Well, then you got to move out. You know what I'm saying? It's just, but right, I don't want these things, right? But it can bring me clarity on what I do want to happen, right? By, you know, sometimes I don't know what I want, but I know what I don't want, right? And that can also help me bring clarity on what decisions or options I really do have to pick, right? Instead of me thinking that there's other options in between there. So definitely some things to keep in mind, and things that I think are some nuggets in there and some clarity that might help you with a decision that you're trying to make right now. And some questions you can ask yourself to really give you clarity, and some exercises you can walk through on a daily basis that can really help there, right? But at the end of the day, You have a choice. You can make those choices. You can train your brain to work and operate in different ways, just like we do with the body. And these are all things that, you can develop over time.
Yes, definitely. And for those of you that haven't caught it yet, the Farm Mental Performance IG, spitting out a bunch of nuggets. So make sure you follow it. Pick those nuggets up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, it might just be something that pops in your head that, is really helpful for that day. And, a little, pick me up with that as well. And then also too, through that IG, we've been putting out, again, our podcasts that are like this, that are about mindset, that really, something from that side. If you need that, and again, I don't know who doesn't need that, right? It's just, again, those little pick-me-ups, something that you can go through there and stay up to date with these little mindset checks as well. But until next time, Farm System out.